Ons gesels verder oor die stand van dienslewering in die Goudstad met twee formidabele joernaliste, Ferial Haffajee van Daily Maverick en Giulietta Talevi van Currency News. Ferial, so you recently reported about the staggering amount of power outages in Johannesburg. Give us an idea of the scale of the problem.
Sure, so I'll just go back a little bit, if I may. I started noticing on neighborhood WhatsApp groups, especially where my mom lives in Mayfair, that almost every day people were saying, there's no power, there's outages. So we started tracking very carefully using the reports of the city and our own reporting on the social media posts. And what we found was almost 100,000 outage reports, reported outages at least, in just 9 months. And then we looked at the 3 months in addition to that and found that over 5,000 of those were really, really serious. So what this means is that in the biggest city in the country and one of the biggest in Africa, you don't have a stable and reliable power grid any longer. It was the stories of people's lives and how it's absolutely shattering their lives and their businesses that really got to me and made me realize the scale of a crisis it's under-narrated in the public square, I think.
But Ferial, I mean, you wrote about how we're going back to the dark ages in a way, in the way that some of these people are managing the crisis because they don't have money for solar units.
So one of the biggest benefits of democracy was electrification, because those of us who are old enough to remember would have come from homes where there wasn't electricity, where people were still using very old forms of energy, be it paraffin, be it gas, be it diesel, and they are reverting back to that. So that's almost like a full circle demodernization of a city and a place, rather than a modernization, expansion to new forms of modern electricity, which is where I think the best cities in the world are heading to.
Giulietta, on your way to the studio this evening, what did you notice? You did a little experiment.
Yeah, because, I'm obsessive, and also I drove really slowly, like an old grandmother. People behind me were really irritated, but I counted 153 streetlights not working. It's an 8.7 kilometre drive between my house in Parkview and the kykNET studios. I mean, half of these streetlights were just strange surrealistic installations because they didn't actually have lights anymore. They're just poles. That's a staggering number to be out on that kind of drive, and it affects safety. People are very nervous to drive around at night. It kind of has a dampening effect on a city's vibrancy when when you feel unsafe to get into your car and drive at night. You certainly don't want to walk around in a very dark and dangerous city where you might collapse into the next sort of Joburg water pothole that has been dug up. And actually, my colleague Shirley de Villiers wrote a fantastic article today about the CEO's pay within the city structures. Now, Joburg, and Ferial's written about this before, the city of Joburg has 13 municipal-owned entities, which is a quarter of the country's entire municipal-owned entities. The city of Cape Town only has 2. And these guys get paid enormous salaries. The City Power CEO his salary for this year is 4.85 million rand.
Isn't that more than the president earns?
Yes, it is. It is, and it's a commensurate to what Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, earns. And it's a 55%
And what do we
increase.
get for that?
Well,
yeah,
I don't know.
Not a lot. So that lady, City Power employs 5 of her relatives. And when Kaya Coco first broke that story in News 24, City Power said, no, it's fine. It's because she doesn't have a direct hand in their employment. Then 2 days later, when people started like, this is dodgy, the board suddenly said, no, they're going to be investigating that. The place is a cesspool of mismanagement and poor governance. And if you look, as some readers of ours have told me, if you look at the composition of the board and the skills of its exco, they may satisfy some gerrymandered rules set by the city, but they don't have the technical electrical engineering and other skills that a utility of this size should have when you drill down into the necessary skills.
I mean, the other issue, Ferial and Lorenzo, is that they run as sort of quasi-autonomous fiefdoms. So you've got these entities that were supposed to be professionally run and managed, but then they've become these cesspools of corruption and nepotism, and they're quasi-autonomous, so they kind of have a link to the city, but the city has no direct controls, and you've got all these boards within these entities.
Okay.
So it's basically just a feeding scheme for board members and executives.
But now the mayor, Dara Morero, announced his bomb squad. Has that made a difference? Have you seen any difference, Giulietta? Crickets.
Not really. I have seen there's been a little bit of beautification, I think, in terms of potholes being filled, certainly around my area, which is Parkview, Parktown North. There's been a bit of road resurfacing. And I don't want to be a perpetual naysayer, but I just don't feel that the engineering work is being done properly. So you slap on a bit of tarmac, you have kind of a grader, it looks pretty for a while, but already on Chester Road in Parktown North, there is a water leak that is now sprung up from this freshly laid tarmac of about 8 days ago. And that's a pure waste of money. It's a waste of resources.
But there's a local election coming up. What's it mean for the
I call
ANC?
Snooky Kalala of the bomb squad all the time. I used to work with him at the SABC.
What does he say?
And I say, Snooks, the bomb squad must do this. There's $1 billion that's gone to family and friends. Or did you see the water outages at the weekend? And then he says he's still being integrated and oriented
How
into
long's
the
it been?
city. So it's not that long, but I'm not sure how something like a bomb squad works when you've got 13 entities, an elected council and an executive mayor. It's throwing structures at the problem rather than fixing systems. If I look at something better, is the presidential working group that is working very hard in the city. It's been 150 days, and I think just ahead of the G20, which is now maybe 3 months,
Yeah,
4 months away. Whew, we're going to see things here. The quality of the work is another story, though.
Do you think we're going to see an increase in service delivery, or that it might create that impression for the ANC to not lose as much support and votes in the next local election?
I think so. But it may just be superficial, and it may be plotted along the G20 routes.
I think it is plotted along the G20 routes.
What I was thinking would be quite fine to send some of the G20 delegates on a wild goose chase around downtown Joburg, or maybe Heidelberg Road, which is the road that I took this weekend, and you would be astonished. It's post-apocalyptic. And I don't think those routes are going to get the G20 beautification treatment, which is unfortunate because they should.
Ferial, do you think the ANC is under extra pressure now that Helen Zille's announced that she's willing to make herself available as the DA's mayoral candidate in Johannesburg?
I think it's going to be the race of the local government election. That Helen Zille has announced that she's at least running in the DA primaries. I think it's fair to say she would be the favourite candidate there.
She's got the most
then
experience.
she's up against Dara Morero. And last week on one of these pothole blitzes, Kenny Kunene of the PA also said he's going to run for mayor. So the race here is going to be very exciting, and I think it's going to be closely watched, and there is pressure on the ANC to deliver. But remember, it only got maybe 30% in the elections last year. It won 34% in Gauteng. I think if you drill down, you'll see it was a little less in Joburg. So it's going to be a hard slog.
And there's
for
a lot
the
at
party
stake
here. There
for
is,
this
yeah.
big city. Ferial, Giulietta, thanks so much.
Thank you.